the fundamentals of the grout of winning. Like you need to make sure, like if you want the tiles to stay in place, you've got to be good technically. And I feel like the Yankees get mentally exhausted or like they just can't run the full marathon as a technical team.
Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, but he's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Monday, July 7th. The New York Yankees avoided a sweep in the Subway Series against the New York Mets in Queens. They take the third game yesterday. They were swept by the Blue Jays last week. Joel, I won't lie to you. We're going to talk about what the hell is going on in Yankee land and why this team has regressed tremendously all around baseball-wise. We'll get to that. And before I get to anything else, Joel, as always on a Monday morning, how are you doing today, sir?
Good. I was at all three games over the weekend. As I've been at most of these Subway Series games since they began in '97, and I actually thought wasn't the cleanest baseball. It was interesting. The Mets were essentially holding tryout camps pitching wise against the Yankees. But they were interesting games. All I ever hope for is interesting games to write about, interesting storylines, and I think that the two New York teams gave it, and we're at an interesting point for both of those teams with a week to the All-Star game, and what about 3.5 weeks to the trade deadline?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. And Joel, I'd be remiss if I didn't go back to what you told me when the Yankees were in the hottest point of the season in the first 2 months. And you're like, Ryan, there's going to be a point in the season coming up here where you're going to say the sky is falling and that the Yankees are going to be playing some of the worst baseball. And I think we've reached that point, Joel. I really do. I think we're at that point with the Yankees right now. And I also want to bring up to you, because it's something I had asked you in the beginning of June when they started really struggling again. What is with this team in the last 3 years in that they have this June swoon and July where they cannot play good baseball after they get off to great starts? It's been 3 straight years, Joel, and they're repeating the same thing here. What are you seeing?
Yeah, they just went 6-16. What's amazing is they had a 6-16 in each of the last two seasons. At about the June, July period, parts of 7 and 18 periods, actually. And those are not common in their last 30 years when they've been a good team. They had one in '95 and survived it and made the playoffs. They made the David Cohn trade, had one of the best Septembers in history, made the playoffs. But then you'd have to go back to really bad teams in the early 1990s to find this kind of stretch. So I know when their players say every team goes through this, every team goes through losing, five in a row or six in a row once. They just lost six in a row twice. And this is about 3.5 weeks of really, really bad play. Now, of course, in 2023, they were not in a great spot because Judge got hurt. Believe it or not, their terrible stretch began on the day Judge returned. And they fell from outside of the wild card to no hope by the time it was done. Last year was somewhat similar to this year. They fell out of first place during their terrible run. Then they righted themselves and they got back in it. The idea that this has happened 3 years in a row where it wasn't just a bad, lost 7 of 11 and then they got back together and everything was good. I do wonder if they have the ability to self-examine and say, is there something about an Aaron Boone team that, happens at about this time? Do they, like, do we need to do something different in spring training? Do we need a different manager? Do we need different coaches? Do we need a different philosophy? Is there something about like, hey, 2, 3 months into the season, do we need to bring up some young players to change the juice of things around? Because, once is once, two, you want to say is coincidence, but this is the third year in a row we've seen this kind of death swirl from the team. And I don't have an answer for why it is, because like if you just want to say it's Aaron Boone and the coaching staff, well, last year's team recovered and came back.
Right.
So then we give them credit and say, well, Aaron Boone's also the kind of manager who could do it. And even in 23, they came back well enough to get over 500 at the end, fake like they were in it for a little bit of September, but they really weren't in it. And in general, Aaron Boone's teams have been 90 plus win teams that get into the postseason. So I'm not exactly at peace with why it's happening, but I would not ignore that it's now happened 3 years in a row.
Right. It feels like a reflection on Boone and the front office, right? Like this is, to your point, 3 years in a row. You can't deny what's going on with this team and why they're going through these slogs midseason. I think the alarming thing for me, Joel, is that the baseball defensively has gotten really sloppy from the Yankees. And those are things that we saw last year that you had noticed. And mind you, this is different players, right? So we're seeing things from different players, but it's the sloppiness. It's not the good execution. Guys aren't hitting at the right time. You've seen some regression from key contributors on offensively. I I don't know what else to say other than it. There needs to be a change. Like there needs to be something to change. Like this can't be okay. Like you two, where you're saying, Joel, where every team goes through this. No, they don't go through this 3 years in a row of this bad stretch in that key part of the season. And I'm at a point as a Yankees fan, I feel like I don't know, Joel, if it's going to be 23 where this team really isn't that good and they're not going to make any damage in the playoffs, or if this is going to be like last year, we can turn it around and we can make a run to the World Series and then we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't have a good read on this team, and I don't know which way to lean. I don't know if you have a certain way of feeling of how they can make their way through the rest of the season and where they're going.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. First of all, you have to be careful about overreacting. This is a very good team that is the defending American League champion. And I think, and you and I have kind of, until this bad stretch, thought that they had put together a better 26-man roster this year than they had last year going to it. And I still think that there's a very good offensive team in there that kind of like has been in this strange period for 3 weeks where for half of the 3 weeks they didn't score. And then in these like the back end, like they just kept missing opportunities to blow a game open when their bullpen really needed them to blow some games open. Okay, so I think there's that. If I was looking for commonality, and I know if we had Aaron Boone on here, he would argue with me about this. I feel like the Yankees get worse technically and fundamentally as the season goes along. That's been the common thread these last few years. Now, the easiest thing to say is that Aaron Boone is like kind of pally with the players and doesn't demand enough of the group. And if you want to have that theory, it's fine. I do think if I were in charge, if I were Hal Steinbrenner or Brian Cashman, I would say, look, this has happened 3 years in a row where it feels like we hit a certain point at about 70, 80 games where the team kind of gets mentally tired about doing fundamental stuff right over and over. Because this is something you and I have talked about over and over for a year plus, which is to be a good fundamental player is to do the routine, the boring, with passion and energy and technical expertise over and over again. And it's easier not to do it
Correct.
than to do it. And the best players, and I would point out that the Yankees brought in two players like this. I think Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger are exceptional at this. And of course, they won a game yesterday in part because Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt are technically excellent defensive players. And they made not only superb plays, but the right plays, aware plays, right? Bellinger comes up throwing to first to get a double play. Goldschmidt sees that Mauricio has jumped off first base and understands, tag him, then get to the bag. Don't create the rundown play if you don't have to. So, like, that happening yesterday is a reminder that they do have a couple of guys they added this year who don't get exhausted doing things right over and over and over again. To me, like yesterday was a day where I would sit and say, well, Trent Grisham kind of drifted into a ball over his head. He came in and didn't field the ball cleanly, which is a physical error. Maybe anybody makes it, but he made it, right? And I just feel like Boone is probably not a riot act manager. Aaron Judge is probably not a riot act um, captain.
No.
And these are moments where I always feel that the Yankees have never fully replaced Brett Gardner and CC Sabathia, who I thought were wartime consiglieres to steal from the Godfather. Like I thought that they were guys who knew how to go up and say, this is unacceptable with some strictness. And I do think a lot of this always has to come from the players. And I don't know that they have, and by the way, this might just be modern baseball or
Hmm.
modern sports. I don't know that accountability is great in our sport. I think we think so little of the fundamental stuff now, and we think about, watching the iPad, launch angle, and all the things that are really, really, really vital to winning. But to me, the fundamentals of the grout of winning. Like you need to make sure, like if you want the tiles to stay in place, you've got to be good technically. And I feel like the Yankees get mentally exhausted or like they just can't run the full marathon as a technical team.
They're
And
fatigued. They're fatigued,
and
Joel.
yeah, and I lay it on the two errands then, which is the Judge and Boone as the manager, the captain, to be able to say we are a very talented team. Like you've got to suck it up. You've got to do things right day after day after day. And by the way, would you like to see the highlight film of what happens when you do it wrong? I'll show you game 1 and 5 of the World Series last year. It might have cost the Yankees a championship that they could not technically do things well over and over again. And to me, if you're asking what my commonality, I'm trying to figure it out, is everyone goes into a hitting slump, everyone goes into a pitching slump, etc. To me, this is an area you shouldn't slump.
You could
You
get
should
you.
show up for your job every day, ready to do it with a high level of passion and expertise. And sometimes it feels like at this time of year, the Yankees hit a mental wall about it. To me, I know Aaron Boone, who I talk to about this with some regularity, would say, well, what you're missing on this play is that, or this play is that. And I'm like, but there's an accumulation of this at this time of year every year. And I would say we might be able to alibi it. But it's like the kid who thinks he's right in every argument, but he's in every argument in the class.
Mhm.
At some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, nobody else is arguing but me.
Yeah.
And the Yankees are like, there's an accumulation where I could sit with a starred play. I keep a circle on the plays when I'm scoring. That one's weird. That one's weird. What happened there? Because I'm kind of locked in on it. And so you could, oh, what happened on this play was Wells threw to third base, but Jazz didn't think that there was a play at third base. So he held his position and Wells threw it and he did it. No harm, no foul. Like they both made, Boone's argument was they both made a good play because Jazz shouldn't have left this spot and Wells had the common sense to throw it to Jazz, not covering. And I'm like, right, but that looks like horseshit. Like you're not coordinated, as opposed to that two guys made a smart play. And since I don't see it regularly done on a baseball field where it's like, hey, a guy's not covering, I'm going to hit him, not covering, I'm going to say that there was something wrong on the play.
Joel, there's a common denominator there of why it's accepted for them as a team because Boone accepts it, and that's the message he's giving you guys. Oh, it's a good. That's a problem. Like, and that's I think essentially a problem from both Boone and Aaron Judge, especially last week after you get swept by a team in your own division. Mind you, the Yankees can't beat anyone in their own division right now. That's a problem. Like you should be addressing that and saying we stink against the AL East and we don't know why, and we're going to try and figure it out. I don't want to hear as lip service, and I think Aaron Judge does this a lot. I think he tries to be Derek Jeter in the captain mode. I'm going to be the level-headed, not get too high, not get too low. I'm going to have that type of speak to all of you in the media and to us as fans when we watch the press conference. I don't need you to tell me that you're the best team in the American League because I'm watching it every day. You're not the best team in the American League, especially with the way you play defense recently. And that's a poor reflection on your entire team, not just you. So I think it's ignorant sometimes when they say we're the best team in the American League. How about we feel like we can be the best team in the American League, but right now we're not playing like it. In fact, we're playing like one of the
But that
worst
is
teams in
what
baseball.
Boone said. I think we're the best team in the league, but we're not playing like it right now. I mean, he did. That was the whole sentence. I know everybody's decided to cut off the back end of that sentence. Look, I think that if I were trying to, I think Jeter and um, Judge have a lot in common makeup wise, but behind the scenes, Jeter was tougher than people realize. Uh, and he also had Posada as not only his best friend, but his sergeant at arms, and Jorge ran hot. and would get up on people who he thought weren't doing it the Yankee way, the right way. Along the way, those teams had David Cohn and Chili Davis, players who were great sergeant in arms about the right way to do things. So I just feel like, and that was look, that was historic time and team. They had a lot going for them and a lot right, including players who brought it every day and played well technically, etc. I do think that Boone Boone was hired as the anti-Girardi, right? And it's going to be very hard to say, hey, you are hired as this, you've been extended twice as this, change your personality. So that's number one. Number two, for all that Aaron Judge does great, is one of the reasons he does great is I think he does not allow negativity to get in his world. He is like, you know what it is. He doesn't want the yes cameras here. If you've ever seen him handle a question he doesn't like, there's a kind of like a coldness to it all. And I get it in that maybe even media thing. But I do think as a captain of the team, it can't be an arm around a guy. And I'm always careful to say this. I don't know everything that happens behind the scenes.
No.
But I've asked enough questions. I don't sense there's any kind of like, dude, this is unacceptable at the highest level. I think everything that's reinforced in modern sports in general and the Yankees in specific is encouragement as, come on, man, we got to do better instead of like, next time you do that, I'm going to actually tell the reporters that we've talked about this 3 times and you still refuse to run the ball out, or you still refuse to hit the cutoff man, or you don't follow our defensive principles and play where we tell you. Like, so I do think that I would be feather, 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 hammer. At some point, you got to drop the hammer. I get it. In this media landscape, it's very hard to drop the hammer and control it. But if everything is an arm around the guy, does the guy feel the threat? Here's the one thing, and I loathe to say it because I think one of the most misused things about the Yankees over the last 15 or so years since George passed is George wouldn't have, or George would have. Like, you know what? What would be happening if George were here? Most of that is bullshit, just so you know. But the one thing that George had was fear. People were afraid of George. So there was always the extra effort by his front office. There was always the fear by a player that George's wrath could come down on me. I think these players play with absolutely no fear of negativity coming friendly fire-wise. And now the question is, should there ever be friendly fire? Should there ever be? We could probably have a long show about that.
That's a long philosophical question of should you be taking shots at your own people?
But I think the lack of a fear factor from, oh, my captain's never going to get mad at me. My manager's never going to get mad at me. My general manager's never going to get mad at me public. The owner's never going to get mad at me. Like, therefore, everyone has to be a self-starter and self-accountable. And some people are not great self-starters, and some people never look in a mirror. Right?
Yeah, it's a poor.
Can I give you a play that bothered me the other day?
Sure, I might be able to tell you what it is, but go ahead. I want to hear this one.
So it's the one in Toronto that's the second Volpe play, the first and third second Volpe play, which is backhand in the hole, and he has absolutely no shot at getting the guy running to first, throws it anyway, and the guy from first goes all the way to third with 1 out. So I cover baseball in New York. I have that blessing, which means I cover both teams. I watch both teams constantly. I am going to guarantee you at 100%, I'm so positive, I'm not doing 99 or 98 or 97, at 100% that if that is Francisco Lindor, he backhands the ball, he pumps hard to first base and sees if he could get the guy rounding second base. 100% of the time. Because his IQ on the field is exceptional. His ability to slow the game down when it's going fast is exceptional. His ability to think the game before the ball is hit to him is exceptional. Volpe never thought of that clearly, did it, and then defended it after the game. What is the level of accountability on that? play on all these. Like that is a bad baseball play. It's just bad.
Yeah.
He had a 0% do it. Even if you didn't have the cool to pump it to first, which is the play, to see if you could backpick the guy coming around second. By the way, I don't think LeMahieu got to second base. So I think even if he did it, I'm not sure because they had a high view of it. LeMahieu was kind of wandering into second. I'm not sure that even if they did it, they get the back pick. Okay, whatever. The answer to that question isn't, well, that's what I'm going to do. Well, then don't do it.
Yeah.
That's a bad baseball play. And I also think then it's okay for the manager to not talk about him being elite in that situation. It's like, hey, I think he should have eaten I don't think there's anything wrong to say, I think he should have pumped or he should have eaten the baseball. There were 3 options and he took the door number 3. That's the worst play. And an unacceptable play because we know the theme of this show a lot for the last 2 years is nobody likes to gift 90 feet on both sides of the ball like the Yankees. That is a gift in the middle of an inning where the other thing that's happening is you're playing on the road. The Blue Jays are surging. You're falling. You're giving the crowd more reasons into the game. You're giving the Blue Jays more momentum and enthusiasm. Just take the ball and eat it or pump it. But don't give them 90 feet, which they don't seem to care about all that much.
Nope.
It's just such a rallying thing for an underdogish team to have. And you're just giving them 90 feet for no reason.
I completely agree, man. It comes on the manager too to hold him accountable, and he doesn't. Like
that's what I'm saying. Is
I know.
Say after that game,
he accepts it.
Hey man, I get it. It's tough in real time, but door number 3 was the wrong door.
But Joel, and this is, and I know we're getting into the deep of the philosophy of how you lead and how you be a leadership and all that. Like Aaron Boone's not going to air him out because that's just not his style, and also Aaron Boone's mindset. I'm in the middle of a slog of a season. I'm trying to get us through this. So I can't air him out at this point in time and say, this is where I'm going to really make a point because there's probably no good time, right, to do it. Like, that's the other thing. There's no good time to be like, I'm going to air Anthony Volpe for a really dumb play in the field, and this is the time I'm going to choose to do that because I still have a whole lot of baseball season left, and I actually need him to be a performer for me the rest of the year if we want to get to where we want to get to this year. That's kind of, but I feel like his mentality with this entire thing.
Yeah. And again, without being 100% of knowing what goes on behind closed doors, it's fine if he's not doing it with us, except for if it becomes serial. I do think at some point, managers and players, if the same bad thing keeps happening, you got to be honest publicly. If it's a oneer, I still think behind the scenes, you have to go to the player. By the way, even as a oneer or a 2 or 3, you got to, and maybe they do this. There's got to be I watch them go into their hitters meetings all the time, and I know they're playing loud music, and they've got whatever the happy talk is of the day, and their mental skills coach is giving them the, we could win today, we're so good, don't get down on yourself. To me, I would put the play up on the screen and say, this happened last night. I would treat it like the NFL. I would treat it like the NBA, and maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't think they do. Maybe I do. I would say, here's 5 plays from yesterday. By the way, here's 5 plays from around the league yesterday that we think are weird plays so we don't get caught off guard. The umpires are calling this play this way now. Let's all watch it so we know if this happens when we do it. Like, there's no sense in having like video guys and stuff and you're not cutting up all the stuff and preparing every day. This is the major leagues. And again, I feel like if you told me I could only hit hard or throw hard, but nothing else, I would take hit hard and throw hard. But you don't have to just have that. You can have the grout. You can have the stuff that holds everything else together. And I think a high level of accountability on playing the game the right way should be done. And I think that's for all 30 teams.
100%.
If I ran a team, I'd say, hey, man, if it's not every day, a couple times a week, we're going to put up on the thing your plays and plays around the league, ones we like and ones we don't, to discuss it so that when that play comes up for us, one of the things that can't be said in the accountability department is, oh, we didn't go over it.
But Aaron Boone will still tell you, oh, we went over it. We did our homework. We do our drills. We do all that. I got it. Joel, so that's the leadership and accountability part of all this. But now there's also a path forward, right? Like, because they have to play the baseball games. They have to get through that, and they have to address this. What is the best way for the Yankees to address these defensive concerns? First off, before we even get to the pitching part, the defensive part, it feels like with Jazz Chisholm playing third, they're hurting themselves every single game. And I don't understand why the Yankees are so in the mindset of will be loyal to DJ LeMahieu playing second, a man who doesn't have much range anymore and isn't providing much offensively to say, yeah, he should be playing every day. And I'm playing a guy who is clearly not comfortable at third. And he's also playing hurt right now because he only says when it's when he's throwing, not when he's hitting. But I gotta play Jazz out of position. I'd rather put him back at second and figure out third base with Peraza or something else because that's hurting them right now in the infield defensive wise. And I don't know what's going on with Anthony Volpe. It's not just the play you're talking about last week. There was a ground ball from Pete Alonso that he just gets eaten up by, and it goes over his glove, and you're like, what's going on? I don't know if he's hurt. I know he's struggled a lot since he got hit in the elbow, but there's something going on defensively with this team, and also the Jason Dominguez factor, right? So, like, you've highlighted him a lot this year, and that's the last part I want to highlight. How many times do we watch a fly ball hit to left field against the Mets, and a single turns into a double because he's giving him the extra 90 feet because he's taking the wrong route to the ball? He looked like he was lost in left field at Citi Field. His bat's been phenomenal. He's been their best hitter, arguably, the last 2 weeks. But defensively, if he's in that game yesterday instead of Bellinger in left field, the Yankees don't win that game probably. I don't know, Joel.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there. So let's try to unpack some of it. I think one of the reasons the Yankees are staying with this configuration at second and third right now is I would encourage Yankee fans, any fan, to go through the exercise of find a third baseman in the trade market. You know that will be there. So I think what they're doing till July 31st is giving themselves the chance to add a second baseman or a third baseman. Like, it would be imperfect if they had to keep Jazz at third, but if they had a better second baseman than LeMahieu, you might feel a little different. So I think they want to give themselves both pools because it's just they've been trying to find a third baseman since the offseason began. Now, maybe like Eugenio Suarez gets into the marketplace. Maybe. I'm going to say one. I'll regret this. I know. He's got too much money left. He has a back issue. But I think Brian Hayes could be Scott Brocious. He's such a good defender. That I feel like Brocious was, who isn't hitting, but for as an original team where he's like, hey, you've got to be good. I have a feeling like if a good team acquired Brian Hayes, put him at third base and said, field the hell out of the ball and hit 240, we're going to bat you ninth. Try to move runners over, turn the lineup over when you're down there, that you might get a lot more offensively out of him. He's like a guy I look at and I keep saying, now maybe I'm also biased. I covered his dad and I really liked his dad, but I think there's a much better player that in his original home isn't coming out. And I would assume that he's very much available because he's owed money through like 2029. And because he's owed money through 2029 and he's had a back issue, I understand why all other 29 teams would say thanks, but no thanks. Mm-hmm. I get it. He's like, suddenly if Jazz is at second and Brian Hayes is at third, your defense is so much better.
Well, wouldn't you agree, Joel? I hear you on the both pools part, but wouldn't you agree that they are going to be hurting themselves a lot if they continue to play Jazz at third after the July 31st deadline, even if they got a second base?
I agree that in the best of all possible worlds, he should be playing third base. Second base.
You're right.
But you're in a situation, and I would find, look, I think the answer is the Yankees have to find a third baseman, but I do encourage the exercise. The Diamondbacks decide not to trade Suarez. And by the way, if they trade Suarez, there's going to be 5-8 teams lined 100%. Up to try to get him, right? You decide Brian Hayes' contract back issue not for you. It dwindles quick. And then if you're saying, well, let's just get a defender there, to some degree, like I know a friend of mine texted me who's a crazy Yankee fan yesterday and said, "What the hell is Peraza doing at third base today?" And I said, "Well, I think Jazz is a little beat up, but I also think Max Fried is on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
And Max Fried, the ball's going to be hit to third base a lot with Max Fried, and Peraza is doesn't have a ton of major league skills, but he can really field. And so I think that's why he's at third base. I wouldn't be surprised if he was at third base a lot of days now when Fried is pitching. And I would suspect if the Yankees don't get a second baseman or a third baseman, that one of the things you might see is that idea of Jazz going back and they'll live with LeMahieu, Peraza at third. I still feel like they'll get somebody. I keep trying to figure out who that somebody is. Uh, like the Red Sox are back in it. The Red Sox are back in it. When they weren't, a guy like David Hamilton, who is a good fielder who could really run but doesn't hit that well. I was like looking at him. Is he the kind of guy who, like, at least he gives you elements to help a winning team? So I think they'll end up with somebody. The Dominguez thing. The metrics do show he's gotten better month to month, and Boone says it, but it's almost like he has a game or two every 10 where you sit and go, like, stunned at how bad it is. Like, he's never done it. I'm not sure that I've ever seen a defensive player who has particularly horrible defensive games. Within the, like, it's never great, but there are stints where you say, that's fine. It's good. It's good. It's good. And then the opening game against the Mets,
Mm-hmm.
he misplayed 3 balls in 2 innings. I mean, it was a lot to watch. So I've never seen it, Ryan. So I'm not, and he's a good athlete. I do think that guy plays hard and cares. You watch him run to first base. That is not a guy who's loafing around.
No.
So I think he wants to be good. So I'm not exactly positive and at peace with what's going on there, but it's not great. And look, the shortstop has regressed at pretty much everything. And it's a reminder, it won't stop it. It won't stop it. Next spring training, the scream will be, if you don't put George Lombard on the team, you're not trying, or you don't put Spencer Jones on the team, you're not trying, or whatever. And then it's like you put them on the team, and most of the time they're Anthony Volpe. Like, it isn't as good as you think, right? It's, you got to bring this guy to the majors. It's always the backup quarterback is always going to be better because he's the guy you're not watching play. So I think Volpe might be in his head. I will say this, I believe at 100%. He must bat ninth. He is coming up with the most runners on base over and over, and his approach with runners on base and the way he's being attacked, he is killing them offensively. Their numbers with runners on base and runners in scoring position and moving runners over have been terrible. And the guy at the core of that, more than anyone else, is Volpe hitting sixth often. To me, he's got to hit ninth. And this is again in the messaging. Hey, man, hit ninth. Field the hell out of shortstop. Play a more little ball game when it calls for it. Turn the lineup over. One thing he's done well this year, highest walk rate of his career. Walk. Let's get back to the top of the lineup. We're closer to Judge. Get on base. Cause problems. And so to me, I would try to de-emphasize his place in the lineup to see if I could kind of calm him down and get a better all-around version of him, because this guy, the ball is finding him and the bat is finding him at the worst times. Like the Alonso play is a tough play, but I get it. But that ball can't get to the outfield. Like, somehow that ball has to be stopped. And it's like 110, 112, whatever it was with backspin. I got it. That's not an easy play. But it's a major league play. And his throws haven't been great recently.
Nope.
There's just a lot of regression across the board, Ryan.
Right. So I wonder, and hear me out. Do you think he's probably playing banged up with that elbow? Because he's still hitting with that elbow guard ever since he got hit there.
I think that is very rare that we get to 90 games and everybody isn't banged up.
Right.
And then the question is, can you play through banged up or not? I'm sure Judge and Bellinger and all these guys are banged up, and it's not Yankee exclusive. It's 30 teams. If you're playing all the time, you're banged up. And then this is the wisdom of Chili Davis for me. I used to love to deal with Chili as a player when he was a Yankee. He said, I will never talk about injuries, ever, ever. Like, because you come over and go, hey, Chili. And his line was, if I'm playing, I'm good enough to play, and there are zero excuses. You will never hear me after the game. Well, I'm doing well, but my elbow's hurting. And if I'm not playing, assume that I've reached the point where I don't think I could play and help the team. Those are my answers to the injury question. He goes, because everyone feels hurt right now. So you're either hurt and playing, and it shouldn't be an excuse, or you're hurt too much to play. And I was like, I'm a Chili Davis guy. And so I love that.
I just wonder again, and the regression's alarming with Volpe. There's so, like you said, there's so many times he's coming up to the plate with runners on and he's just not coming through. I agree with you. He shouldn't be batting sixth or seventh anymore in this lineup. He needs to be dropped to the bottom of the order. It's alarming because you want your shortstop to be a contributor for you, both offensively and defensively. It's such a prime position on the field for you, and you're just not getting that out of him right now. So Joel, like that's the defensive part. Some of the offensive part. We haven't even addressed the pitching of this team. And that's where I got to go here and shift the rest of this episode about the pitching. We get the news Clark Schmidt's done for the year. He's getting Tommy John surgery, and he's done for all of next year most likely as well with this time of year, the way the injury occurred.
Yep.
You feel for him because he was starting to discover it, right? Like he was giving you length. He started to look like, hey, maybe this guy could be a 2-3 in your rotation. Like he was giving you really good outings. So you lose him. Luis Gil is still probably 3 to 4 weeks away from even trying to make a return, and who knows how much length he can even give you. There is a tough schedule coming up, Joel, after the All-Star break for the Yankees in terms of their opponents. Their bullpen has been taxed, and it's going to continue to be taxed because you got Will Warren, Marcus Stroman, and now Cam Schlittler as your bottom three rotation. And I don't know if they can give you more than 5 or 6 innings right now in their current state. What are they going to do? Is starting pitching, no matter what, the number one need for this team right now heading into the deadline?
Yeah, you see how this picture changes constantly during the season. I think a week ago we would have said the Mets pitching was in more dire straits, but they've kind of like plugged and played and got through this, and then by next weekend they should have Senga and Manaya back, and maybe they're back in order. We'll see. I still think they need a starter and 2 relievers. I think the Yankees need at least a starter and 2 relievers. They might need 2 starters to get through this. And the sooner the better, to your point. I know fans will be excited Tuesday or Wednesday when, I think Cam Schlittler is lined up to start. Oh, it's the new guy. Again, it's the backup quarterback. Maybe he'll be really good. Who knows? His last start in AAA was very bad. But we'll see. But a team with their aspirations, they're down to, and look, like Max Fried looks like he's hit a little bit of a wall, right? Like the last few starts have been good. Most guys would take it. But let's give credit. Like the Mets are a team, as opposed to the Yankees often. Their strikeout rates are among the best in the sport, especially those first 4 or 5 guys in the lineup. And they foul the ball off a lot. They force you to throw it over the plate. Like 97 pitches in 5 innings yesterday for Fried. So Fried got away with like 2 runs in 5 innings, but you had to get 12 outs from your bullpen, and that's win day. Like the Yankees better win on the days Fried starts because Rodon is backed up a lot. And I don't know if you saw the stats. So it's like, this is my Rodon issue. And it's my issue with Boone when he says, well, he got hurt by a 3-run homer and a 3-run homer. And I'm like, right. So I went and looked at the multi-run homers he's given up this year. There were 14 base runners for multi-run homers this year for Rodon. 9 are walks and 1's a hit by. So 10 of the 14 are either a walk or a hit by. So it's like, well, sometimes, like there's a bloop or, well, whatever, and then you give up. but the walks are self-inflicted, especially when you have his stuff and you can challenge people in the zone in certain situations. So, there's a backup there. I'm assuming Will Warren's going to hit a wall. I wouldn't have a high level of trust, faith in Stroman. So, I mean, if you ask me how the Yankees kind of sputter, if these last 3.5 weeks are uh, their identity, I would say that they don't have enough starting pitching, which strangely was the thought coming out of spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a great job because guys like Yarborough and Warren really pitched well. Now, do they get? I think that Hill is going to be in play for them sometime after the All-Star break and before the trade deadline. I think he'll be a potential, but like I need to see a second year that he's good. So we'll see if he's good, right away coming off of it. Yarborough was that smoke and mirrors. He'll probably be back in early August. Whatever it is, think about what we're saying now for a team that really 3 weeks ago, them and the Tigers were the two best teams in the league pretty consistently for the first 2+ months of the year. I think that they cannot leave the trade deadline without at least one starter, at least two relievers, and at least one bat that plays second, third, and potentially maybe even right-hand hitting left if it was perfect.
And I'd be again. I have to bring up the bullpen here too, Joel. Luke Weaver, a lot of home runs in his last 3 outings. I know they said originally we heard 6 weeks for injury recovery for him with the hamstring. He comes back in 3. You guys are asking him, or the media is asking him, after the outing, are you feeling okay? Because you haven't been good your last 3 appearances. Boone says it's execution. What are you seeing, Joel? Is it execution, or is this guy probably coming back a little too early from the injury?
I don't have a clean answer. I wish I did. It's another situation where Luke Weaver was brilliant last year, especially for the last 4 months, especially for the last 2 months in the postseason. And he was brilliant until he went down for his hamstring injury this year. But his track record is not brilliant. So did he just have the best 80 innings of his life? And he is returning to Luke Weaver? I don't know. I think the Fernando Cruz injury is a huge injury because he was pitching very well. He's a swing and miss guy. Mark Leiter does, in theory, the two things. He misses bats and gets ground balls that you'd like out of every pitcher, including a reliever. And yet there's nothing but runners on base. To me, he's very Adam Ottavino. The count is always 3-2. There's always base runners. So there's that. Like at this point, Tim Hill's their most reliable relief pitcher. The one, and you also could tell from the way he pitches, he's fearless. So like they've lost some stuff in that area. They badly need Weaver to regenerate, Devin Williams to pitch well, and to get another guy or two.
Yeah.
There, like, who the Yankees have, one of the things they've done great for about 5 to 10 years now is bullpen. They've always had long, quality bullpens. They've done great at finding guys on the margin and cleaning them up into really productive pitchers. This has not been that bullpen. It's been very middle of the pack this year. And, some of that is about the end game where Williams was really shaky, especially early, and Weaver has been shaky late. But it's about the whole length of the bullpen. And as you know, Ryan, nothing gets traded in the next 3 weeks as much as bullpen guys. Let's put it under over. 18 and a half relievers will be traded before 6 p.m. on July 31st. The Yankees need 2 of them, and they don't just need 2 bodies. They need 2 guys who could pitch in the last 9 outs of the game.
It's they're in dire need, and like I said, Joel, it's not going to get easy when you have 3 starters out of your 5 that are probably not going to give you much length when you look at it. I mean, like you said, Will Warren, I don't know if you could trust him. Going continue to give what he's given you so far. Marcus Stroman can really only give you 5 innings, if we're being honest, and we'll see what happens with Cam Schlittler. Joel, that's an episode. there's a lot there to unpack. There's still more coming here. We'll see how they fare against the Mariners and the Cubs. The Cubs are playing some of the best baseball right now in all major leagues. And then they're going to get into the All-Star break, and then I don't know. We'll see how this
And
team
look, they
stacks
put
up, man.
themselves. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Ryan. They put themselves in some wild card even danger, and Seattle's one of those teams they'd be in wild card danger with. And they're playing them for the next 3 days, and it would be interesting. Cal Riley and Aaron Judge in the same place at the same time. Will be fascinating. The Red Sox have kind of crawled back. Yankees helped that by losing 5-6 to them, right? Or 6-7, when they lose 5-6 to them. They've done it. Look, I think Toronto's probably playing over its head. I think Tampa Bay's schedule gets very tough July, August, because they're on the road so much. And when they're home, there'll be lots and lots of rain delays, is my suspicion. Um, the Yankees are still a good team. I think they've got a really good offense that hasn't fully played well. You just see it's a little different. Like suddenly Austin Wells had two good games
Yeah.
in a row. I continue to believe I had a conversation with Boone the other day, and I'm like, essentially, I said, am I wrong about Wells? Because I think he's going to be a good hitter. Is it just the catching is beating him up and he can't do both? Because the thing that happened to Wells while he wasn't hitting well was when he didn't hit well statistically last year, Ryan, the at bats were still great. He was long at bats. He was hitting the ball hard, especially to the left center field gap. And you know this because we talked about it a little. I was like, stick with it. He's going to be productive offensive player. And then he went off on about a 6 or 7 week tear early in the second half and was that guy before he settled down at the end. The thing that was disturbing about watching him for about the last month is the at-bat quality has been bad.
Right.
And so did he hit a wall? I I don't know. That's another place where the roster doesn't work perfectly because it's three left-hand hitting catchers. I wonder to fix it. Like I know they like JC Esquera. I know they specifically love how he frames. He's a very energetic guy. I do think he's hit into some bad luck. I think he hits the ball hard a lot and it doesn't kind of like fully show up. But just to make the roster work, if they think Rice could be the other catcher, for because I'll end with this, and I know we didn't want to go off on a tangent. Peraza is a flawed player, and the Yankees have to do better than Peraza. But the problem is with Oswaldo Cabrera hurt, Peraza is the only backup shortstop.
Yep.
And you saw like the last week, the Yankees added CJ Alexander and Nicky Lopez to the minor leagues, like just to have more shortstop options. And I think that was done because they know they might have to lose Peraza off the roster to make the roster work. Like, let's throw a name out. I'm not gonna throw a name out because
Don't throw
then
a
it will
name
get
out. Yeah, don't throw a
aggravating.
name out.
But like, let's say they find somebody who plays second, third, or second and third,
Okay.
but doesn't really play shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
The move is going to probably be to take Peraza off the roster, and then they'll lose him, right?
Right.
Because they have to DFA him because he doesn't have any options left. At that point, I think they play with no backup shortstop, right? For a month until they could get a 14th player on September 1st, a 14th position player. And in an emergency situation, I assume Jazz Chisholm becomes hey, Volpe jammed his thumb in the third inning. We got to finish the game. Jazz is going to go play shortstop. But I think they probably want to load up AAA with some backup shortstop options so that once Peraza is off, if he is off, they could do it. So it's like, again, like in this week, I encourage you before we do this again next week, come up with this imaginary player who can play second, short, third, and maybe even a little left, hits right-handed, though that isn't maybe the most urgent thing, but right-handed would be best, and could do that and isn't a terrible defender and can hit a little bit, especially lefty pitcher. Like there's look, we're gonna get close to unicorn, and you know.
Are you saying,
So
I guess, and you're asking for someone to be that versatile. It's harder to find a player like that, right?
right. So that's why I'm saying, do they have to put like Ascara in the minors, actually keep Peraza on the roster,
right.
but then add this player that does a lot of other things, and you just trust that Rice could be the backup catcher and Ascara is a phone call away. Because having three lefties back there doing all your catching, that, you know, it's
They're a very flawed team right now. Like
yeah.
that's what they are.
The,
And
the the structure, they maybe one of the things they need to fix in the next 20-ish days also is just the structure functionality of the roster to a little better place. Because again, against the lefty pitching, you've got Dominguez batting right-handed against the lefty, and I know they keep telling me how much better he's doing. But that's a thing also. Like Dominguez, maybe this is just a young player, and why don't we go out on this, Ryan? Because I've kind of like gone beyond our like time a little here, but is Dominguez is strange for me because he could look good in left and then have pockets of looking bad. Like where it's like just a game like that first game. And then he could have games where he looks good batting right-handed, and then games where he isn't even going to foul the ball off batting right-handed. And so it's a weird thing, and maybe it's just he's a young player.
yeah.
We're seeing he's starting to make some real strides as far as hitting the ball. He is a threat on the
Yeah.
bases. So there's a ball of interesting stuff there. And I do, again, I always give a guy, when I say it is, I think it should not have to be said when a guy plays hard. That should be the template, but he plays hard.
Yeah.
And I would give that rope, but they're a championship level team, maybe.
Maybe.
And so they probably have to find somebody who can maybe bat right-handed instead of him. And certainly they have the guys to go in and play defense for him late, with Bellinger, Grisham, etc. So anyway, just a thought that roster construction, how it's put together, three lefty hitting catchers isn't the greatest thing of all time.
No, it's not. It's not. And we'll see. I mean, there's going to be some gymnastics here coming up, and we'll see what kind of changes they need to make. It's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks how Cashman reads this roster and what how he's going to address these things. Joel, I'd be remiss again if I didn't say also thank you for filling in with Dexter last week. Appreciate you guys carrying the weight, and it meant a lot to me to see you guys do that episode last week. And I always have fun doing these with you to talk Yankees baseball, no matter how bad it might be right now for the Yanks. It's fun just to talk ball with you, man. And I appreciate you always for giving me your time and insight on all this.
Yeah, family is way more important than the Yankees or anything else. And so, my hearts and thoughts continue to go out to you and your family.
All the best, Joel. As you say, you're the man. Thank you as always.
All right, peace.